name is Joyce Anastasia, and I'm a transformational leadership consultant. I recently wrote the book Extraordinary Leadership During Extraordinary Times, addressing 7 vital keys to help us lead by greater wisdom. As we enter this new year, it's even more critical that we address vital keys on power, uniqueness, dynamic balance, and our miraculous nature. And for those of you who have not yet worked with me, I'd like to share the context of this video. As I worked with and interviewed many leaders over the last decade, I developed an integrative and effective approach to leadership and power. Keeping open to new innovations, I attended a very unique and valuable conference called Sports, Energy, and Consciousness. What jazzed me about this conference was that it addressed our highest potential, integrating body, mind, emotion, and spirit. And through my full participation in this conference, I had the incredible opportunity to interview Pete Carroll, the head coach of the Seattle Seahawks, about his integrative approach toward leadership, power, and our highest potential. I hope that you enjoy this free content and take the wisdom of his words into your life. Thank you, Pete, for participating in the conference and for taking time to share your leadership perspectives with us today.
Hi, I'm Pete Carroll. I'll do a little interview on the weekend at the Sports, Energy, and Consciousness event happened here in Marin County, in home area, and happy to be able to be a part of it. I think it was the event's still going on, but it's a really extraordinary gathering of people who have done amazing things in the world of sport, and their desire to study the depths and take it to places where others aren't willing to go is really unique. And I've always loved the work of Michael Murphy and Dave Megacy and all the guys that have come together to do this. So anxious to, and happy to be part of it.
If you were to summarize 3 top lessons that you learned from Michael and David and the others about sports and consciousness, what would you say?
Well, way back in the 70s, we were studying sports psychology, and Glenn Albaugh was introducing us to stuff that he was being introduced as well, I think at the same time, to the extraordinary things that were going on in sport. And Michael was really at the forefront of that way back then, and he started to give us language to describe and explain kind of things that happened, remarkable things that happened in sport. And he was a great sport enthusiast himself, and I think with his works in Golf in the Kingdom, he kind of set things in motion for a lot of people to start talking about things in a different way. I think so that it was the openness that they had to the other things that were going on, the language that they brought as well to give us, to start talking about, peak performance and related to eventually what turned into the discussion about being in the zone and all those wonderful things that occur sometimes in performance arts. And so I think it was just them giving us dialogue and inspiration that really made this kind of come to life, and it's had a life of its own for a long time now.
What would you say has been one of the key successes for you with your team, with your players?
I think it's the ability to communicate and make sense of that we have an overall philosophy and we have an approach and something that we really believe in deeply, and demonstrate how committed we are, so that we could convey that message and they would have a place to hold on to as we're going through the challenges and the rigors of what we're faced with. With that, it's been an ongoing process of discovering, what's the best way to communicate to make sense to help people be the best they can be. And that's really been what I look back now and see what we've been charging after all this time, is to help individuals and help teams find their very best. And the discussion and the dialogue and the willingness to go in and be deep with the individuals, which makes this a relationship-based approach, is what really has given us, I think, opportunity to have great successes. And it's still really hard, really challenging, no matter how much you think you have your act together. There's so many variables and so much that goes into it. But it has, I think it's given us a common language that's allowed us to stay really consistent. We've had a lot of consistency in the last 15, 20 years, and that's that I'm really proud of. And it's hard. I think it's easy to do well sometimes, and it's hard to do well all the time. And so I think the consistency of the process and the language and the vocabulary and the commitment to the philosophy has given us that chance.
Thanks so much, Pete. There's a concept that I use with people I work with, consciously choosing power with versus power over. A lot of people have a concept of coaches, especially in sports, as being really authoritarian, top down, you better listen to me. In watching you last night and hearing you just today, I sense that you are more of the power with camp than the power over. And can you describe what that's like for you?
Yeah, I think the authoritarian way of coaching is the best way. In general, it's been the most successful over all time, and it allows you an approach that gives you a better kind of avenue to control a lot of people. But in that, to control a lot of people, you have to make them act the same. And when you make them act the same, sometimes you leave out the opportunity for those that are unique and special to be able to demonstrate, stuff outside of what's generally accepted. You think of the old army and how they cut everybody's hair off and put them in uniforms and treated them like garbage and yelled at them, screamed at them to break them down so that they could get them to function at a level they could count on. Well, that was great. That's the way to do it, But they set a ceiling on your performance when you do that, and special forces units don't do that anymore. They'll beat them up and make them tough and all that, but they expect guys to demonstrate their uniqueness and the special intuition that they have and the ability to improvise based on the circumstances so that they can really function at a really high level. I believe that's a better way to shoot for, because we're trying to be the best in the world at what we do, and so I want to give guys a chance to take us there, and so I'm trying to get out of their way as much as anything. So, but that doesn't, sometimes in saying that, it gets misunderstood that it all comes from discipline. It all comes from extraordinarily high standards and the rigors of the preparation and the toughness and the commitment and all of that stuff. You can't get there without that, but that doesn't mean that the way that you approach it has to be the same way as what we typically understand. And I think that's pretty, I'm pretty much misunderstood about that to some extent, and I can't do anything about that, but I just have found that through helping people be the best they can be, you have to give and take, and you have to work with them, and you have to figure out how to communicate with them really well. And in that's not the same way as yelling at people and making them feel like they're in kind of an abrasive, coercive kind of relationship. There's a time to kick guys in the butt now, and you have to be tough on them, and that's just part of it. But that's not the only way, and that's, to me, it's not the most effective way for me. And that's all this is. I can't say that somebody's supposed to do it like I'm doing it at all. You do it the way you can do it, and this is the best way I know how to communicate. And I do want to nurture, and I want to empower, and I want to draw from the individuals as much as I can, figuring I can take them closer to their potential by doing that. That's basically what it's all about.
I'd like to go back a little bit in your own life. Could you tell us what you did before you were coaching? Could you describe?
Yeah, well, I was always a player. I played 3 sports and grew up here in Marin, and just playing everything I could possibly play. And interestingly, but when I was a freshman in high school, my high school coach Bob Trotman asked me to coach at his summer camps, and so I wound up coaching all through my years in high school and all through my years in college. I really coached for 8 years in the summertime before I ever even thought of being a coach. I was just earning my way to go to his camps, but I can't ignore the fact that he was a powerhouse of a coach, and he inundated me with mentality and approach for appreciation of fundamentals and basics of the game and all that I still think is one of my best strengths, as I'm coaching now. So it was really always playing, wanted to play forever, couldn't, and then went back to school to get my credentialing so that I could move ahead and then wind up falling in love with coaching.
Can you describe a situation that, let's say, a player was having a really tough time, really feeling out of it, not connected, where you came in, or the team came in together to help to shift that?
Well, and one that comes to mind is a year after our quarterback at SC won the Heisman Trophy. He's coming back for his senior year, and there was a point in the middle of the season where he was just in the dumps, about his play and just feeling like he couldn't get it done and what's happened and how could he possibly, ever get back on track, and he was doing fine. But this was his own, self-evaluation, and I had to kind of kick him in the butt and say, man, you're the Heisman Trophy winner. You're the best player in America. What are you talking about, And then try to build him back up and with the truth of who he was and what he was all about. But it was a good illustration of sometimes no matter what you do, you can lose track of who you are and what you're capable of. And that's why coaching is so important. Everybody needs to be coached. Most people think he had everything, had the world on the string here, but that's common. That's not uncommon. That's common. And so we, the coaches and the people around him, just had to just pump him up and treat him like anybody else, really. But it was a reconnecting with really the truth of who he really was, and it was pretty interesting. It came out that way.
Fantastic. Appreciate it. So you talk about the uniqueness of your players and reaching their highest potential. What would you say about you? What is your uniqueness and your highest potential?
I don't know that. I'm a competitor, and that really was a liberating thought when I finally got to it. It was so simple that you think you'd figure that out earlier, but it took me a long time to get to that. But and then I built everything in the program around competing. So for me to reach my heights, I have to be extraordinarily on point. I have to be a great observer. I've got to see things before they happen if I can, and anticipate and help people along the way to avoid the setbacks. And so I've got to be on it. With that, we're a very high energy program, and I can't expect others to go any higher than I can go. So I hold myself responsible for setting the tempo, and in that, I've got to have a good attitude every day, and I've got to be upbeat, and I've got to be energetic, and I've got to be in shape enough that I can move and do what I have to do to get that done, and then ask the coaches around me to do that too. So that's when I think I'm functioning best is when I'm really not worried about any of that stuff, and I'm just rolling and going with it. And to do that, I have to really trust my instincts and trust that I'll do the right thing at the right time and respond the right way, which isn't the case. We mess up all the time, but for the most part, we stay on point a lot more than we don't.
What have been some of your most challenging moments as a coach?
The most challenging thing, I think, is to help players stay on course with what they're capable of doing. That's the biggest challenge is to stay connected and so they can communicate with them well enough so that you can keep making progress, because they fall off a lot and they set back and they which we all do, and respond how we respond to that effectively so that we don't misstep the next time, and miss an opportunity to win for a month or a couple weeks or whatever it is while you're bouncing back. I think that's the greatest challenge, and because to me that takes everything to keep everybody on point, and it's everyone. It's the coaches, and it's the players, and it's the people that support us, and it's the fans, and that's the challenge, to keep us all moving forward where we can function at a really high level above what other people are able to attain.
Yeah. So not getting thrown off by things that are out there despite.
Yeah. That's the discipline that we talk about, of focusing on that which you can control. We have to really work at that, because it just gets away from you in an instant. You hear a report, or there's something on the TV, or there's something that occurred, or there's history that could affect your thinking and all that. And you really have to work to be disciplined, that you focus on that which is right in front of you, what you can control. So we practice focusing on things all the time to just get used to it. Get used to lasering in, and being able to, there's garbage going on around us, and bam, we can come right back to what we need to get on, so that we can develop that skill. I think it's good. Consider it a skill to be able to connect with your brain that allows you to get right back on point again, and hopefully not fall off enough where you really suffer and you don't perform like you're capable.
We talked a little bit last night about this notion of the kind of superstar scenario, the hero fallen, the hero back again. Could you talk a little bit about that, both in terms of the real difficulties of that, but also the miraculous moments associated with it?
Yeah, well, that's just it's all natural stuff that happens. Things come to you because you're successful, and things come to you when you're not successful, and sometimes they weigh just as heavily on both ends of it. And it's being able to put them in a proper place, maintain the balance, so that you can stay on point, and simply coming back to just performing like you're capable, and not letting things affect you. And there's so much media, and there's so much. It's just a confluence of things coming from all directions that affect guys, and they have to deal with it. So part of that is preparing them. Part of that is helping them see it coming, and help them get through it and find their way out of it, and not get attracted to stuff that's going to wind up being big distractions. I mean, it's all part of the training, and the ability to find yourself in extraordinary moments and feel normal is really the challenge. That's the idea. Is you get to a point where you win world championships and it's okay. It's not the big deal. It's not. Championships are what you expect to do because you work hard, you prepare properly, you pour your heart and soul into it, and so that when you get there, it doesn't throw you off course. And that's the challenge, to maintain a really high level of consistency over a long period of time, which to me is the greatest accomplishment. And it's not winning the championship; it's how long you can stay on top, and that's the challenge that you're talking about, and that's it's dealing with life, dealing with whatever, and then making proper choices and decisions so that you can stay on course, being you as an individual and as a team.
Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate it. How do you personally balance when all of the successes come? There's even more demands on your time and your space and your energy. You told me you had 3 kids. How do you balance with your family?
Well, it was a process, and I'm better at it now than I was earlier, and when you're in the midst of the climb and the fear of how far can you take it, how much can you win, and how, all that, which is pretty normal stuff for us all. You can be off course with the decisions that you make and not, balance things properly. It's just been a process, and not unlike what the players go through. It's the same thing, you get things come your way and you get affected by stuff, and does it throw you off course? Are you acting authentically? Are you not? It's hard to know how to act authentically till you know who you are and all that. So it's just a long process. As I look back, I made mistakes along the way. I made choices that I wish I wouldn't have done and followed. I think I could have been truer to the person I was capable of being if I'd have been clearer and been able to defend stuff off, just like the players. It's the same thing. So it's the same process. It's having a great appreciation for being true to yourself, and then it's knowing yourself well enough that you can tell when you're off base. That's what philosophy gives us. It gives us a tracks to run on, and when you get off tracks, the ride gets rough, and you can tell something's not right, and so you adjust and you correct and put yourself back on course. And the better you do that, the more efficient you do that, I think the better shot you have at doing your best. That doesn't mean you're going to win everything. It doesn't mean you're going to be a champion. It doesn't mean any of that stuff. It doesn't mean you're going to be all-time and whatever. It just means that you have a chance to be at your best, which is really all we ever really want to shoot for.
Yeah. Do your kids help you to stay in balance?
Yeah. Matter of fact, I have, my sons work with me, and they're extraordinarily valuable to me because they'll tell me the truth. They'll, at least as best they know it. They're not always right, but they will not hold back. They're so loyal that they're willing to put themselves out to tell me what I need to hear, and that's a very, very valuable asset for a leader. And when you're in charge of something, most of the time people tell you what you want to hear, and that isn't very valuable. They're being loyal, but that's not the real loyalty. The real loyalty is when people will tell you the things that they know you don't want to hear, but they know you need to hear it, and they'll act on that. And so my guys being with me, they're extremely valuable in that regard, and nobody else can really find their way to that relationship except for a couple guys that have been with me for a really long time. I've convinced them and loved them through it, and they'll close the door and tell me whatever I need to hear, and I need it, whenever they get to that point. But, all of that is all part of balancing and keeping things in the proper place. And really, the wonderful thing, is having a beautiful, wonderful wife that was with me throughout. Glenna was awesome, and she took care of me throughout all of the growth times when I was messing up and screwed up, and I didn't know what I was doing, and I got in over my head on stuff. And she was just been such a tremendous balance for me, and she's stayed with that, and she's gotten better at it, and I'm better at it because of that. That relationship has really centered my focus on everything by being great to her and loving her properly and taking care of her and treating her the best way I can think of doing it. That keeps me closest to my core, and that's why everything else feeds off of that. So, and I've grown. I've gotten much better at understanding the tremendous value and the focus of that, and it's made everything better.
That is such a gift, and it's so unusual. The value of that balance and what you do at home reflects what happens at work, and vice versa.
It's so common. We're captured by the chase of it in the pursuit of what we think is the right stuff. And really, I've learned just recently from studying a guy named David Brooks. He talks about the pursuit of profound character, in his book called Road to Character. And he's so on it, explaining the value of realizing what your purpose is. Really, for us, as we go along and we have successes and we grow through our life and all, it's our ability to reconnect with purpose that keeps us on track and growing and being effective and continuing to improve. And it's really about building character. You can be a better person. You can be a better you, but you have to work at it. And as long as you're working at it, we don't ever get there, but as long as you're working at it, then I think that's really the great understanding that I know it helps me tremendously.
It's fantastic. Appreciate it. Thanks so much. Thank you. Thank you, Pete, for participating in the conference, for your hands-on perspective on leadership, and your approaches to access our highest potential.